Shalom Israel. First and foremost, we give all praises, all honor, and all glory to Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushua Ba'Shem Kakadash. The ones the apostles and those great millstone forward teaching us this truth, peace, and blessings to the whole of Israel. Yahweh is the name of the Infra name. Hebrew Ba'Shem is the name, and Yahweh Shai is the name of the begotten Son. Back in the lesson, as you see within the title, I wonder who warned you about this. And really, speaking of these, soon to be lockdowns, back in place, which we have been warned of through Spent Probably how Ba'Shem Shai, starting with the apostles and elders on down over that great millstone. You can look throughout various brothers' channels of us speaking on and going into these lockdowns and how they weren't going anywhere. But you had people mock, you had people scoff, call us crazy, all sorts of things. Well, as we're going to read right here within the article, it says 2 from upstate New York. I believe it's New York. Yeah, New York. It says quarantine after Honta V. And when I say Honta V, I'm speaking of just right here, just cutting it down. Just to be careful, it says outbreak on cruise ship. And I believe I made a lesson just yesterday. They have a map now as to where these supposed infected people are at. But you had someone also pull up the map, from when the 19 was around, the C19. And, that map was, pretty much, spit an image as to, where these people, were located. So this devil, most definitely, has a hand in this in order to, further his plans to gather that control or, garner that control, from chaos, go into order out of chaos. This devil will purposely cause problems to then swoop in as that so-called hero, as you saw back in 2020, where people were wanting to get out of lockdown. People were wanting to go out and have fun and party and so-called live it up and live a so-called normal life, and that came at a price. You needed to have that juice, that concoction this devil cooked up, and we warned of that, especially to stay far away from that, because really that was a test, for us, especially in the spirit, in this truth. And you had a lot of Israelites that ended up buckling under that pressure and giving in. So if you failed the pop quiz, imagine when the test is now in play, which is going to be that MOTB, that charagma that we're going to be presented and faced with. But I'm going to read a little bit of this article. And it says 2 people from upstate New York have been quarantined after a Honta V outbreak on a cruise ship. And it says Dr. Alistair Martin confirmed Monday that 3 New Yorkers were aboard the MV Hondias, a cruise ship where 3 passengers died after being infected with the Honta V. The Associated Press reports another 6 cases have been confirmed or suspected, according to the WHO, and also dealing with that one video that was trending, dealing with that cruise ship, how that dude was crying, saying we're people too, and this and that, and he was clearly reading the script. So you're gonna have this devil most definitely play it up. This may be the next big one this devil has been alluding to for years that we have to see. Because at times you definitely will see this devil will inflate the numbers in order to further raise the fear in these people to better control them. Just as you've seen back in 2020, people looked at you like you were crazy, that you were bugged out for not wanting to take that thing. And look what ended up happening. They got taken out. Now, 17 Americans, including 3 from New York State, were taken to the University of Nebraska Medical Center for quarantine and monitoring. Struggle with that word for a second. This is on Monday. 1 American tested positive for the Honta V, but was not shown symptoms. Officials said it's unclear if they were from New York. But you see, this is clearly spreading. People are catching it, because there is truth to it. But you also pick the meat from the bones, because you have this devil will inflate the numbers just as he did back in the 19, or back with the 19. But we're going to a couple of these scriptures just to further establish that point, especially as I made the title. I wonder who warned you about this. And speaking of these lockdowns, that we're always coming back. Because back in 2020, that was nothing but a trial run, a little test, a little experiment this devil did. So now he, covered up the holes and, what's what I'm looking for? Tighten it up pretty much, Seeing how people reacted, the way people, did things, operated, maneuvered, whatever the case may be. Now he knows how to really, get you. This is Ezekiel 33 and 33. So when this comes to pass, the Lord will come, then shall you know that a prophet hath been among you. You know that a prophet has been among you, that you have been warned, that you have been told of these things to come. Because the Lord has set up watchmen among you to do so. This is Ezekiel 3:17, also another great scripture. Further on that point, it says, Son of man, I have made thee a watchman unto the house of Israel. Isaiah 62 is also another good one. I'm going to grab that. Isaiah 62, 67. I'll get that after I read Ezekiel. And it says, Son of man, I made thee a watchman unto the house of Israel. Therefore hear the word of my mouth and give them a warning from me. So the Lord uses prophets as his mouthpiece. And you have, many of our people will scoff and mock, call us crazy, bugged out, all sorts of things. Not knowing you're mocking and scoffing at Yahweh Ba'Shem Shai. Because really it's the Lord warning you. He's using his prophets to do so. Uses his prophets as his mouthpiece once again. So Son of man, I made a watchman to the house of Israel, therefore hear the word at my mouth and give them warning from me. This is why you're going to have people in these last days seeking out the prophets, the men of the Lord. That was out here prophesying, blowing the trumpet, giving the warning. But you didn't take them serious. That's why you get in the scripture in Proverbs 1 how the Lord is going to have the last laugh. He's going to be laughed through his prophets, through his men. It's going to be one of the biggest I told you so moments. But Isaiah 62:6-7, it says, I've set watchmen upon thy walls, O Jerusalem. Who are those watchmen which Yahweh Ba'Shem Shai set up? The prophets, the men of the Lord. And what are watchmen known to do? They sit upon these high towers. You're overlooking, you're seeing if danger is there, and when danger is close, what do? They blow that trumpet, they give the warning. So people are made known and made wary of what's ahead. And this is what we've been saying that is to come. Dealing with these lockdowns, whether it may be by the way of this pestilence, martial law. Because you are going to have this devil, crack down, come to these last days. Checkpoints being held. And I guess in order to access and bypass these things, because you need to have the MOTB. But say, I've set watchmen upon thy walls, O Jerusalem, which shall never hold peace day nor night. Ye that make mention of the Lord, keep not silence, and give him the rest to establish until you make Jerusalem a praise in the earth. So you're constantly bugging Yahweh Ba'Shem Shai to get us out here to destroy this place. Ezekiel 9:4. Set a mark upon the foreheads of the men that sign and cry for all the abominations that be done in the midst thereof. That's what we're doing now. We're signing and crying out unto our power, Yahweh Ba'Shem Shai, to deliver us, to get us out of here, to keep us, man. Isaiah 10:1. This is woe unto them that decree and write the decrees and not write grievances which they have prescribed. Go into these draconian-like laws. When you want the word draconian, it goes to harsh, strict, severe. So you're going to have the devil, cracking down. In Revelation 12:12, going to this great wrath this devil's preparing to come down with. As you also get 2 Timothy 3:1. These troublesome times that are fastly approaching. Which, goes to, in the last days, perilous times shall come, or paraphrasing. Or therefore, in the last days, perilous times shall come. But this right here is, just further establishing that point, don't these, draconian-like laws, these mandates, restrictions, that is definitely going to put into place in order to force the people's hands. Because as I brought up that point earlier, back in the year 2020, you had people were pretty much begging to go out and live their so-called normal life. But that came at a price. You need to have that concoction. Soon it's going to be this MOTB, this charagma, which they have been conditioning and preparing you for. This is a 2 Corinthians 11. Also, there's a great scripture. Been pulling this out a lot. But, that's the spirit. Because, it hits the nail on the head, with everything this devil is doing. And we're seeing right through it. Let Satan sugar and avenge us, for we are not ignorant of his devices. We've been saying these things for years. Dealing with the things the devil's going to do. Once in hell, these lockdowns were coming back. And all these, various other things. We just got to see, how these things, will play out. We know how this devil, operates, the way he moves. The way this devil does things. And he's being revealed for it. You have people now questioning and going to these things now. But guess what? The apostles and elders and down of the Great Millstone have been revealing these things for years, decades. Hey, that man of sin is being revealed. So when it comes to things like this, dealing with these pestilences and these things the devil is doing, which I've been listening to with Bill Gates and these ticks, and where he, is funding and, has, backing the lab-grown meat, chicken, 3D printed meat industry, and now we're seeing things coming out dealing with these ticks, genetically modified ticks that he is, behind and, funding to where, these ticks are, which I believe they're called the Lone Star tick, where if it bites you, you're pretty much unable to eat meat. So you have people wanting solutions for that, and hey, look at this, lab-grown chicken, lab-grown meat, eat this up. And really, they have been wanting to, replace, food in general with these things. I believe they were having talks of wanting to implement this within stores, supermarkets. But once again, starting off with from on top. So let Satan show get vengeance, for we are not ignorant of his devices. You get the NLT. It says that Satan will not outsmart us, for we are familiar with his evil schemes. And we have the playbook. The 2nd is 14 through 17. And it says, woe to the world and them that dwell therein, for the sword and the destruction draw nigh, and one people shall stand up and fight against another, and swords in their hands. So you're about to see really absolute chaos erupt, as we continue to get calamities and days. And we've been seeing things, heating up these past years. Just as somewhat in the beginning of this year, dealing with this whole ICE situation, that was picking up. We're in the midst of, Jacob's trouble, man. But it is only going to pick up. We're just in the beginning stages. So I get in 2nd Ezra 16, going to these birth pains, Matthew 24 and 8 also, how all these are the beginning of sorrows. It's just a start. This is why it's important to be on the hedge and protection, of Yahweh Bashim Hashem, because the Lord is the one doing these things, man, bringing these judgments, these plagues, these pestilences upon this place. And guess what? He's going to be using this devil to especially bring about certain things. Once again, this is not the first time this devil has done something, like this as we've seen with the Honda V. This devil's cooking up within these labs. Why do you think he came out pretty much near instantly, with that concoction, that juice for the C19? That was pretty much instant. Usually it takes years, to create a V, But it says, verse 16, for there shall be sedition among men, and invading one another shall not regard their kings nor princes. And what does sedition among men go into? Doing that word sedition goes into riot/rebellion. You're about to see uproars, which you're, really have been, seeing on a lower scale, but it's only going to increase, because you even had a few months back, Donald Trump pretty much threatened to declare, martial law to get, these troops, military troops involved. And there was a reason why you had a while back dealing with these National Guard troops, stationed all over the states, So you're most definitely, see these things pop off. And you also get Isaiah 19 and 2. It literally goes into the GNT translation, where it says the Lord will stir up civil war in Egypt. So you have been seeing this great divide, this division within this place already. which we have been saying through the spirit that Donald Trump would be used as that catalyst to stir up and bring about division. And well, what do you know? Prophets were right once again. But read verse 16 one more time. For this be sedition among men, and invading one another should not regard their kings nor princes, dealing with your people in power. For example, dealing with your presidents, mayors, your people in authority. This is in the course action stand their power. And this is verse 17, a man shall desire to go into the city and shall not be able. And really that's the point. Soon they'll be shutting this place down, locking it down. Checkpoints being held, can't leave your city, your state, travel. And guess what? Soon you're going to need to have a certain sum in order to do just that. But the second Ezra 16:22 and says, and suddenly shall the sown places appear unsown, the full storehouses shall suddenly be found empty. Excuse me. So as you seen a while back, dealing with 2020, and the various complications that came from it. People stocking up all sorts of goods. People have lack of food, and also you see it affecting a lot of businesses, which is what this devil has especially targeted. Dealing with these family-owned businesses, forcing you to rely upon him. It's Ecclesiastes 12:3. This is in the day when the keepers of the house shall tremble, and the strong men shall bow themselves, and the grinders cease, because they are few. And those that look out the windows be darkened, soon you have these businesses shutting down. Even dealing with these other businesses that barely made it out of 19 are going to struggle even more, as you see this devil heavily affecting the economy. It constantly going down, getting worse and worse. This is why you're going to have this devil swooping with something bigger, something better. But MOTB, this government is digital currency. This is verse 4, further establishing that point, these businesses shut down. It says, and the doors shall be shut in the streets when the sound of the grinding is low, and shall rise up at the voice of the bird, and all the dogs' music shall be brought low. So it's also going to lead to a lot of people losing their jobs over this devil threatening you if you don't take this concoction. It's MOTB, you won't be able to work. And you're going to have a lot of people that's going to bend that knee once again, as you've seen back in 2020. And if you felt that pop quiz then, how much more now? But that's the point. So one of the brothers, speaking on this, thought to make it less, diving into it, because things are heating up. So ultimately we'll see what more will come from this. Like I mentioned, made that point. It was always been alluding to something worse than what took place back in 20. So this could be it. Could be the bird that fell you, and we have to see. It could be all of it combined, But we said to see how exactly it will play out. But we know the outcome of these things, dealing with these lockdowns, restrictions, mandates, all in order to further fulfill this devil's plans. But that's it right there. Lord was edifying, goes out, give all praise, honor, and all glory to Yahweh Bashem, Hashem, Hashem, Dash, and Shalom. See you next one, Lord.